Hi everyone, welcome to the Revizto phone app training. I'm going to show you how to use the phone app today. You can see the application here on my screen. I'm going to press that and that loads up. You can see that page there, and now it brings me in here and says loading up the last open project. So Revizto will generally open up the last project you had open. If it doesn't, if you're new to the software and you've not opened up a job before, it'll open up to a home page with a list of all your jobs. It's brought me in here to the issue tracker. You can see at the bottom here, issues, 2D, 3D, and the more button. I'm going to press more. Brings me into here, and you can see at the top my projects. If I press that, you see a list of all the jobs I have available to me, and I can click on one of those and open up that job. To exit out, I press the arrow at the top left, and that brings me back out of here. And then I have my preferences at the top. I have my general, navigation, display units, camera, 3D, issue tracker in there. You can scroll through them and set them up as you would on the desktop application. Display units in there, graphics. Set your graphics as you would on your desktop. Camera, visibility distance, I always push that to the end. 3D, so this is having clickable transparent objects. And the issue tracker, that's adjusting your pin visibility distance. So they're your preferences. Then we'd have in here user profile. So you can adjust the user profile, who's logged in. We have in here integrations. So just like the desktop app, we can see in here Procore, Box, BIM 360 and SharePoint. We can connect to them. We have the About button here, and that shows me the build. And then lastly, we have the Help button. It takes me to the Help site. If you press Done in the top left, that exits out of there, and that's the More button in there. If I press the arrows at the top left, that takes me out back to the issue tracker. Now I have the button in the bottom, the 3D button. I'm going to press that and take you in there and show you what that does. Now you can see it's just loaded up the 3D model. It's brought me in here, and you can see the model in front of me. In the bottom here we have a blue and white button in the bottom right corner. Now this button here adjusts your tool options in the 3D space. If I press it, you can see I have these buttons. If I press it again, they change. So I'll press this and I'll bring you in, and these are my visual sort of tools, first of all, and I'm going to walk you through them. First up, we have our home button. So if I zoom into a spot, maybe I'm underneath a building and I'm lost, I press that, that resets my view and brings me back to the start point, and it's related to my viewpoints. Next up, we have grids. Press the grid button next to that, and you can select whether you want above, below, or fixed to a level. We can select fixed to a level here, choose level 9, and I've locked the grids onto level 9 like so. If you want to turn those grids off, press the blue button again and they're gone. Next up, we have our issues. So if I press this button next to the grids, you can see it's gone blue, but we need to zoom in and find our issues. So I'll show you how to navigate now. So when we're navigating in here, we hold down 2 thumbs and we can pinch and pull. So if I want to pinch and pull up here, and then I can pan by using my 2 thumbs, holding down at the same time and moving in that direction, and we will pan, and then I can pinch and pull into that area. Now you can see my issues here on the screen, and I can review them. If I want to orbit around, I could hold my thumb down and just move my head around like so and look around the project. But we can also use the joystick. So we have a joystick in here. If I hold my thumb down for a second, you get this joystick appearing in my screen, And now this is allowing me to move my thumb in a direction and walk around the model and have a visual look like this. The faster you push, the faster it goes, the slower and more controlled you have, the more control you have over how you walk around the project. So we could come around here, now move our head, come and look at different things in here. When I am finished with my issues, I press the issue button here and you can see that they disappear off my screen. The last button we have in here is my show all button. If I press that, that turns everything back on and resets my view. Now if I press the house button, that brings me back out to the start point. Now I'm going to press the blue and white button in the bottom right corner and change my settings. So we have new choices down here. We can see them all as I toggle across. First of all, we have the stamp button. So I'm going to press that and show you how to log a stamp into the model. So first of all, we want to zoom into an area that we want to review. Might run down to this corner. We can see this column here. Maybe I've identified an issue. So if I press the ST stamp button in my screen, we can see in here my recent stamps used, and we can see in here my stamp categories. So if I press Clash, we can see my Clash stamps. If I go back out, I see my constructability stamps there, and so on. I'm going to drop a structural constructability stamp in here, so I'll press the bottom one on my screen, and now I'm going to drag that around and paste that just there on the corner of the column. I hit done in the top right. That's now been created. So I can then go in here and then do a markup. I could then press the camera button on the corner here, take a photo. I could do a markup. I'll do a quick markup around here, draw around there. We want to add some text in the text box. Relocate that. Press the tick button there to add that in there. Then I can adjust my angles of my text if I want to move it over there. If I want something like that, we can then do a box around this and then put some arrows over there. So crazy markup, but I'm trying to get the message across. We could also load in images here. So if we've got a picture already taken, we could do that. We can position the issue, so we can adjust the issues there, and then we've got the stamp button again there. So now that we've done that, we can adjust our markups like so. We can see down here the setting button in the middle. If I press settings, that allows us to adjust colors, line weights, arrowheads, and so forth. So you have a few choices there for different settings for your markups. Press the arrow in the corner, that finishes and then brings you back out. Once you're happy with your issue markup, we can hit create in the top right, and that's now made that issue. That's taken me now into the issue tracker, and you can see down the bottom here my choices. So I'm now looking at my info page, and I can see the issue ID at the top there. I can see the status is open, colors, the priorities, deadlines, and so forth here. Then we have the chat window here. So if I press chat, we can then see the initial markup. We could then type words into here in the chat window here. Press the arrow in the corner and that sends that. We could then press the markup. We could come in here and edit this markup. On the top right, hit edit. I could then select the arrow here, press settings at the bottom, and then I could delete that arrow. If I wanted to delete the text in the middle, press settings, delete, and now I want to add some more squiggles in here. I could then do more markups and then hit the undo button down the bottom if you're not happy with that. Put an arrow on it, then hit done. Now you've done a new markup. If I press the chat button now again down the bottom, I can now see the first markup that I made. And if I hit chat again, I can see my comments, and then I can see the new markup that's been created. So then down the bottom here, we have chat, markup view, and then we have the 2D view. So that's now showing us where the issue lives in the 2D sheets. And then we have the 3D view here, and you can see where it lives in the model. If I go back to the 2D view, you'll notice I have a button in the middle of my screen here which says 2D, 3D, and that's my 2D, 3D overlay. If I press that, that's now giving me some context around where I am in both areas. So you can see the purple icon in the top of my screen. That's now showing me where I'm looking, and you can see the column in front of me below. So to exit out of this, I would want to press one of the buttons in the top right, either the 2D or the 3D, and that's going to bring me back into that space. I press 2D at the top. You can see now I'm back in the 2D section. So they're your choices, and that's how you would create an issue in the 3D space. Next up, I'm going to show you the 2D, 3D button again. So on my screen, you'll see once again 2D, 3D. If I press that, that brings me back out here, and it shows me the overlay again of the two areas. And you can just do this at any given time when you're in the app. So you can overlay your sheets and the models on one screen like so. To exit out of that, once again, we just press which area we want to go to and bring me back into the 3D space. Next up, we're going to use our ruler tool to measure. You see in the middle of the screen the ruler icon. Press that, and now we can see on the bottom here my choices. First up, we'll use the laser, and this is going to be a laser distance, and I drag the control point from a surface to surface, and it shoots a laser measurement across and gives me my distance. Next up, we have the snapping measurement. Press the blue button on the bottom, and now that control point once again snaps from a point and to a point like that. We can also have the right angle measurement. So if I press the corner, the one next to it, looks like a corner. We can then drag the control points from a corner point there and then down to another corner point like that. Lock on, and then you grab this middle piece, and that tells you your heights and then your lengths. So as you drag that middle point around, it's giving you offsets in both angles. Then we have minimum distance. So if I press the min button here, I'm now going to scroll around and look for some objects to measure. I might go over here and select some columns here. Now I'll select one of these columns, and now I'll select the other one. You can see I've now picked up those two columns, and now I've got a minimum distance between the two. Next up, we have our elevation tool. If I press this one here that's gone blue, you can see my control point has now gone active, and now I can drag that onto a surface and I can get my elevations. I can also drag that to the underside of a ceiling or slab and get my undersides too. Now we've got the angle tool. I want to find an angle, so if I look up here, these awnings have an angle on them. So if I drag my control point up, I can now see the grade in which that awning is falling. If I press my settings at the top here, I can then change my display units to get percentages, ratios, degrees, and stuff like that. We also have pipe slope at the bottom here. So if I now scroll out, I need to look for some pipes. I think there's some pipes underneath this building. We go back out, we can now see some drainage pipe here. If I now drag that onto that, we can now see the grade in which that drainage pipe is falling. Next up, I want to use the gyroscope tool. And you'll see in the bottom of my screen here, gyroscopes been highlighted. But before I use that, I want to get myself positioned right. So what I mean by that is if I'm on site and I can see this column, for example, and I'm staring in front of it, I like to position myself in the phone as I am in the field looking at that. Once I see that and that's right, what I'll do is hold my phone up in the angle as I look at it, and I'll press the gyroscope button, and that locks me onto that object. I can now use my phone to spin around and look at what's been designed, and then we do a verification against what's been installed. Next up, we have the walk controller. You see here, walk is active. If I press that, it goes blue. That activates gravity and allows me to walk on the floor surface. And then it also provides a more controlled manner when we use the joystick. So as I hold my thumb down, the joystick's activated. As I push and walk around the building, you can see that it slows it down and it gives it a lot more manageable way to review when you're in walk mode. The last thing on the list here is the show all button. And when you press that, that turns on anything that's been hidden and brings all your models back on. Now I'm going to show you how to cut a section and review the properties. So to do that, I'm going to zoom in here to the corner. Now I'm going to look around maybe at this wall. I'll select that wall. You see it's gone blue, saying it's highlighted. Now I can see some options on my screen. In the middle there are my scissors, and they're for my sectioning. As I click on that, they activate. You see my control point in the middle of my screen is green, and as I push that in and then I pull it back, my section cuts. If I wanted to adjust that, I could now click on a new surface, maybe the floor down here, and press the scissors. I've now cut this section in that axis, and then I can drag that up and down. When I'm finished with that, I'll press the scissors. That brings me back out. Now I could look at the wall, click on it again, and press the box next to the scissors. They're the properties. If I click on that, it brings me in here. We can see all the different property categories. If I hit item, I could now see, for example, it's the wall type, the wall name, source file, and the level. If I shrink that, maybe I go down to geometry, I could now see the areas, the length, and the volume. You shrink that back, and you can scroll through and identify all the properties on that wall. If I press the top left, I can now close that. Now, once again, select that wall. I can hide that wall off if I wanted to. Now that wall's hidden. Now I want to select the wall next to that, and I want to press the three dots. I could now isolate that. I could adjust my colors, like so, and make that wall purple. Maybe I'll give that wall a transparency, 50% transparent, and now you can adjust the colors and transparencies like so. Now, I'm going to go up to the right corner, see the three dots. I'm going to press them. You can now see viewpoints are available, rooms, load and unload, and appearance templates. First of all, I'll go into viewpoints, and you can see a list of all the viewpoints that have been created. If I click on site visit, for example, I open up that. I can then click entrance, and that takes me into that point. If I wanted to go to the level 3 lift, I would then click on that, and that would take me out there. Then once I'm happy, I can then press the back button. I could press home, and that will bring me back out to the start point. If I want to swipe that down, I can close that. Now I press the dots again. We can go up and see rooms. So all the rooms that were pushed through from the architect's model are in here. We can see them as we scroll through. If I select a room, for example, the chiller plant room, we can now see that. It takes me in there. I swipe that down, and we can now see the chiller plant. If I press the dots once again, we could go up to load and unload models. We could now see all the models that were in here. If I click the architect's model at the top and then deselect that, and now I hit apply, I hit my home button, bring me back out, you can now see that we just have the structure and the services models on. The architect's model has gone. To bring that back on, I'd go back and press the dots, press load, select that at the top, hit apply, and now I've loaded that back in. Lastly, if I press the dots once more, we can see appearance templates. So these are appearance templates that have been created in the desktop app. You can see up here the home view. It's a default one that I've created. We have other ones around architectural and structural clash reviews. If I click on that, I swipe that down. We can now do a compare around the different models. If I wanted to come back out, select a different one, maybe an MEP review, we can now click on that, bring that down, like so, and we can now see a transparent mode and all of the services nicely prominent. So that's the 3 dots in the top right corner. Next up, we're going to look at 2D. So I'll press the 2D button at the bottom, it takes me in here, I can see my sheet gallery. In here I can see folders where my drawings live. If I click the top folder, I can see my architectural drawings. For example, I press the level 4. That now takes me in here and I can see my level 4 drawings. If I wanted to go in here and start measuring, I can. So if I go up to this corner, I'll click on the ruler in the bottom left here. I can now measure. I'll do a linear measurement. Press that one there. Now I can just click from point to point and get measurements. And then I can drag that point to any corner, it locks to that, and I can get my overall measurements. Next up we have area. So if I click on that one, I could then do the similar approach. I click and drag, and I'm going to get my areas. And now I can zoom in, see my lengths and my overall area in the middle. But I can adjust that, clicking on the edges, and I can drag that out to suit. I could also do polyline measurements here. So if I click the next one across, I can then click on my screen, click again, keep clicking, and you can see it's picking up polyline lengths and it's giving me the distance on each run. And lastly, we have the angle control. So if I click on that one, I could then pick up an angle. If I click on the screen once, twice, and 3 times, I'm now getting the angles, and now I can adjust that there and bring that up to the different corner points. You want to lock that on, and then you can get your angles like so. In the bottom right, we can also create stamps and issues in here, but I'll show you how to do that outside of here. In the top right, we can press units, and we can adjust our linear units in there. If I hit cancel in the top left, that brings me out. So now that we're looking at our drawing, I can also press the 2D, 3D button in the screen. That's now overlaying me once again in the 2 environments. I can see where I am in 2D, and now I can see where I am in 3D. As I'm spinning around in the 3D model, you can see my purple control point in the 2D is relocating and showing me where I'm looking. If I press 2D again, that brings me back out to my sheet. Now I can place a stamp in the drawing too. So if I press the ST button here, I can now see my stamps. I'm going to do a drawing review. So I see the bottom here, drawing reviews. I'm going to say this drawing is not approved. So if I click on that, I can now see my stamp there. I want to drag this around to the point where it's going to be. I'm going to put it here in this area. Once that's happy, I'll hit done. Now I've got some choices in the bottom, so I could start doing a markup. So I could click around here, do a markup there, update, hit that one. I want to drag that up there. I'll adjust that out to suit. Now I might put an arrow down there, and then we can do some squiggles around here, do a basic markup. Once you're happy with that, we can hit create in the top right. Alternatively, we could add an image in here down the bottom here, or we can take a photo. So we see the photo there. If I click on that, that then locks to my camera, and you can see my screen there. You can then take a photo, use that photo, and then that could be created as your issue. If you hit create at the top right, that's now done. So that now is become an official issue. We can see in here the issue tracker now with all the information around that. We can now click on the chat window at the bottom. I could see the issue that's created with the photo. I could now go into markups, and then I could see the photo again. And then you could see in 2D where that is, and in 3D where that is. If I close that down, that now brings me back out to the 2D area. Now in the bottom right hand corner, we have the blue and white button. If I press that, that brings me into here, and we can now turn on and off our issue. So if I press the issue button in the left there, you can see my issue's gone. If I turn it on, we can see the C has come back. Alternatively, we could turn on our markups. So if I press the pencil in the middle, we could now see my markup should come in. But as you'll notice on this one, we haven't done a markup. So we've created an issue with a picture. So that's why the markup's not coming up, but we can click out of here. We can go and find another drawing with a markup. Let's turn this one on. If I press that, we can now see the markup there. And if I press this again, that's gone. If I press the button next to that, you can see the background of the drawing goes shaded. And if I press that again, it makes the markup a bit more prominent and easy to read. So that is the 2D environment here in Revizto's phone app. Next up, we're going to look at issue tracker. Now I'm in the issue tracker. You can see in the bottom left, the issues button is blue. I'm in there. At the top, you can see I've got 60 issues in the issue tracker here for me to review. As I scroll up and down, I can see the issues there. And if I click on one, for example, this one here, you can see at the bottom there, it's taken me into the issue. It's taken me into the markup area. You can see the markup there. And if I wanted to edit that, I can. At the top right, I can see edit. I can now go in and click on stuff and hit settings, delete. I wanted to delete some of this, select that, settings, delete, and now we can do some more drawings in here. Another box. We want to adjust the settings on that to make that a different color, different line type, like a cloud. Hit apply. That's done. Now we've done a new markup. We hit done at the top there, and now that's created. So if I go into the chat window at the bottom, I can now see the initial markup there. If I go back out to chat again, I can now see the text in there that's been written. We can write messages in our issues, like so. Or we can also see the different markups that have been created, like so. So that's the chat window there, the markup window here, and the info window at the bottom. Info here, we can scroll through all the information regarding to this issue. For example, the status. We see at the top here that this is open. If we're working on this, we might want to come in and say it's in progress. Alternatively, if it's no longer an issue, we might want to come in and solve it. We also have down here more information. So we have tags. We can come down here, select a tag. Maybe this is regarded to Matt and Luke. We can hit done and now tag that issue with those guys' names on it. On the bottom here, we see 2D. We can see where this lives in the 2D environment. And then we press 3D and we can see where this issue lives in the 3D world. In the bottom here, we have some more options. Once again, we have the standard choices that we see in the 3D environment. And if I press 2D, we have similar options again. If I hit the info button again, that brings me back into here. And then if I press the X in the top corner, that takes me out. So we can now scroll down and see our issues. Now, if we wanted to filter an issue out, we could press at the top right hand corner, the filter button. We can see in here all the custom filters. And we see at the top here our presets. So if I wanted to go into here and go custom filter by assignee, and I wanted to find my issues, I press that, hit issues, I could see them there. If I wanted to then hit more filters and say status is any of open and in progress, let's do that. And we can now see I've got 41 issues. I can now scroll through and see them. You can see in here we have the purple ones, that is clash. We can now see the clash there. And if I come down the bottom and I press 3D, I can now see the clash view. If I toggle across, we can see some choices there. And if I come into there, we can also adjust the view and how we see the clash. So we can isolate in transparency, isolate itself, or you can adjust the color modes in how you see that. If I close that back in the top right corner, that takes me back out. And now once again, I'm here in the issue tracker to review my issues.